some portion of this I hear, and when I asked in these 4 group chats, I got, he's throwing stuff at the wall, the border, he's trolling, the 10-year note, and he doesn't care about stocks. And then I got onshoring and manufacturing as a possibility. We're going to make it more expensive to bring things in, so why don't you consider making stuff here? Do you think that third possibility is what's going on here? Does David Friedberg pick one of these 3 choices or another? What's going on here with tariffs specifically?
I don't sit inside of Trump's head, and I don't have any direct line of communication to folks that are constructing the theory and the policy. If I were to say, what's the most masterful plan in an optimistic way of what could be going on here? What's the master plan? I would kind of craft it as follows. Tariffs aren't being done in isolation. They're being done along with a coordinated policy effort to reduce income taxes and another policy effort to reduce government spending. So those are 3 actions, 3 legs on a stool. So tariffs, reduced income taxes, reduced government spending. And they are related to each other. They're related to each other because if we increase tariffs, one element of that is that to import products is more expensive. For example, I buy LED lights in my greenhouse, and the price of the LED lights just went up by 25%. This week, I actually spoke with the CEO of an LED company, and I was like, why don't you guys make the LEDs here? And there starts to become a crossover point where it actually makes economic sense for the company to make the LEDs here instead of sourcing them from Asia. And there's 100,000 examples of this. When the industrial supply chain goes to the lowest part of production, it's going to end up offshoring when there's no tariffs. And if there are tariffs, then you start to do production here. So you're increasing both kind of security for the US supply chain, but also increasing demand and creation of a workforce. Now, I think that the income tax piece is critical here because in order to make the capital available to build that industry here, we need to unleash capital. And reducing of income taxes, the economic theory would be that capital will now flow into these entrepreneurial activity, these opportunities that have emerged, where suddenly it makes sense for me to make textiles, to make metals, to make materials, to make cars, to make all this stuff here in the United States that I otherwise wouldn't be making. So both the corporate and the personal income tax, by reducing it, unleashes capital that instead of going into the government, it now goes into the private sector, into building businesses.
Okay.
I think that there's another theory about this, which is as you drop the income tax, one of the kind of key theories that I've heard spoken about a lot lately, and I think we're going to hear about it a lot more this year, is trying to get the United States to move away from an income taxation model to a consumption taxation model. So effectively, what the tariffs do is there's a tax for you buying certain things. So now, instead of getting taxed when you earn money as an individual, you get taxed when you spend money. And some people think that that's both a more fair system and a more kind of economically vibrant system because that will drive investment in the things that people want to produce because the money's going into production.
Do you think that, Friedberg? I'm curious.
I don't know. It's a really interesting economic theory. I mean, I am not opposed to seeing some sort of an experiment play out where we look at a shift from income taxation to consumption taxation and see if it actually does have an effect on economic growth and productivity. It has not been done in 150 years. There's a lot of economic theorists on both sides of the equation saying this does work or it doesn't work.
Okay.
And let me just say one last thing. By reducing government spending, we are moving workers from the government into the private workforce. So as those new industries pop up, as those investments start to get made in building new industry onshore, where are the workers going to come from? Remember, the government's 30% of the US GDP today. So if that's not a great way to invest money, maybe the private industry is better at investing money and employing people that will unleash the workforce and it will counterbalance the inflation that we're experiencing. So there's a lot of inflation because of tariffs. And by reducing government spending, that's the offset to inflation. So those 3 actions, I think, are 3 legs of a stool, and they actually are all interrelated to one another. So that would be my grand master theory of what might be going on.